Apple makes TV now, and one of their first shows was C. I'm Riley Chow of Gold Derby here with Toby Lindala, the special makeup effects designer for the show, who has actually been nominated 4 times at the Emmys for his prosthetic makeup. Now, on IMDb, you're listed as the makeup effects designer and all-around good guy for the show. So clearly, either you or somebody wants you to be asked about that. So what's going on there?
Well, that's just it, like it says. I mean, take your time, make your own decision, but I'm sure you'll come to the same conclusion. But design-wise, I'm lucky to work with a real wonderful team that I've worked with for decades. It's a tricky show to get your head wrapped around design-wise, just because we've got a rationalized visual interest in a world where people don't have vision, then come up for reasons behind making these decisions. I really, Lance Webb, one of our artists and a long time friend and collaborator, we worked together to put together digital designs and have 3D, full 3D digital mock-ups of the characters. And we started casting that really wide at first and then really kind of drew it back in till we satisfied Francis and the show's creators. That's what makes me a good guy, is that I eventually satisfy them.
Okay. Now, along those lines, can you talk about the terminology about, whether we should be calling you a special makeup effects designer, prosthetic designer, all that kind of stuff?
It's a little fickly. Prosthetics are essentially the definition of prosthetics is any addition to the body. So like a wooden leg is a prosthetic. Those over time, but that kind of limits our involvement. I think we do any organic recreations really, or anything that links to a human, but that's a long title. So special makeup effects is better. We and that kind of incorporates everything from puppets to duplicate bodies to animal duplicates to effects gags like gorings and stuff like that, as well as the subtler character work. It's all considered special makeup effects. And if you want to get really technical, it's special makeup effects. Some people try to say special effects makeup, and that becomes a point of confusion because it sounds like it's special effects department doing some makeup. So it's, special makeup effects is an old Dick Smithian thing that I think says it most clearly.
So on this show, everybody is blind at 600 years in the future. Can you talk about how you designed the makeup differently, knowing that, the characters can't actually see how it's looking on each other?
It was a real challenge, and it was bizarre to get your head wrapped around from the start because there's things like in life. I remember driving. And finally, I felt like I was starting to. We'd already cast the net really wide and started doing some pretty grand designs with Francis Lawrence at the beginning of production, and then I was, he was kind of like reeling me back in as you do to kind of contain his vision, and you start getting your head really wrapped around like, okay, what is it? What's the reasoning behind these things? You start going really internal, like a lot of the alchemy characters. Had scarification, but scarification was initially developed to identify tribes that were born under a certain king. So they, it was kind of like a national census. But we had to find a reason for that wasn't going to have a visual need, right? I need to see it. So we went really internal. I remember working with Alfred Woodard and talking about where her scarification was and what that meant to the history of her character. And it was a real internal thing. Like if you just touch against some of these pieces and close your eyes, and you can get really meditative and go deep within. And that was something that we really thought, brought, not that you'd ever see it happening, but brought depth and character to the reasoning. Another thing that kind of doesn't happen in And for people with blindness is facial identification, right? They don't do a lot of like face touching. I think that's a weird kind of idea that people with vision kind of get. So that was made clear by Joe Strechay from the start, our blindness consultant, wonderful dude. Yeah. So that was some of the reasoning behind that. And then, as we moved along, there was it's funny because it's a real challenge to come up with things that are appealing when you're watching them, but aren't made for visual appeal, right? So I like things like Cutter later on in the first season. Studied. There's a bogman that was unearthed with tattoos and stuff all over his mummified body. And some of them seem to indicate acupuncture or some kind of early sort of homeopathic treatment. So that's what I did for Cutter. I came up with a design that just kind of very asymmetrically accented his face and kind of created this sort of V, almost looks like a star constellation. But it's actually based on troubles with his spleen and stomach that he had, because he's a businessman, he's running an empire, he's an underdog, he's powerful, but he must be hugely stressed. So I thought, well, his internals must be going through a bit of overworking. So but then he had seen repeated treatments and was kind of mapping out those treatments for the sage, the medicine, the doctor.
Yeah, I think with any show, there's tons that goes on behind the scenes that just kind of helps the actors kind of understand the world that they're in, but maybe we as viewers don't really get to experience. Can you talk about the language that you have with all the scars, and then also just with any other way that they communicate? I understand there's a lot with how they feel out ropes and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's some of that was a very organic process. Jason's scars. He's got these interesting sort of like 3 scars that travel up here and 3 dashes under his eye. And those are actually the other side. I'm looking at the picture. But he's those are meant to signify his earlier slaver history, his father being a slaver, and then he escapes that sort of dark world, and he's some of it's a bear attack, and some of it's potentially self-inflicted to help erase that history for himself. That was kind of one of the more deep rooted reasonings that you'll never really know about except what I'm telling you now. The more obvious are things like on Hera, who plays Megra. She's got the scars that run around here, and she's an Ayura, so that's played with other ornamentation around her ear and stuff. And she's got this great ability to hear at depth, have a great understanding. But again, part of that thing I was talking about with Alfred, as far as getting meditative and really focusing your senses on specific areas. There's some neat stuff coming up in season 2 where we've taken some of the witch hunters and kind of carved them here, so they've got like a nose just subtly more, very human, but just subtly more dog-like. So it's just opened up a little further, and they can access more to their senses. So they can access more, more scent, more olfactory work. So some of it's practical, some of it's historical. There's a variety, and we always tried to go into it. We absolutely had to have a reason behind it. There's sort of a quiet Bible. I kind of don't want to get too deep into it because I think some of it's still going to be open to interpretation and maybe reinterpreted as the story moves on, since it hasn't been divulged yet.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So you're currently nominated at the Leo Awards, and you're up for the episode Godflame, which is the first episode of the show. That's also the one that you have submitted to the Emmys. Why was that the right choice? What did it really show off?
Nice work on the research. It established the characters, and I thought it was it's a groundbreaking show. It's visually really stimulating and satisfying. there's a big variety of work that went into it. As I said earlier, special makeup effects. We do characters and gags, and there's and puppets and animals, and we actually did like a bear puppet for episode 1 that I had to crawl into. I was essentially puppeteering it from being within the bear. But if you could see around the other side, you'd see my little running shoes sticking up under the tail. Looked like I had been eaten and was escaping the wrong way. But there's also like the level of detail work. It's funny because I feel really lucky, and Connie's listed with us on the Leo Awards as well. Connie Parker and her whole team, and Santa Sepinen, that our hair designer, our old friends and colleagues for like 30 years. We worked together and designed full characters. We didn't break it apart so much as you do sometimes into specialized. Like sometimes on some shows, we'll do a prosthetic aspect and then send through straight makeup as well, and even hair. Like we were really just working collaboratively, which is a really wonderful way to do it, because it was all about, it was kind of just barely moving the characters forward, not overshadowing, right? Nobody trying to take a spotlight, right? And it was cool because it also left a real subtlety that was required, and a real strong detail level that often, in makeup effects, a lot of times it can be pretty grand. We want to like make a zombie or a dead thing, and you got a lot of room to like throw blood around or make rot here and there, but try laying on like a perfect beard every day, right? And she gives her shot like this, and like every hair's got to travel into the skin believably. We had to get rid of lace because it was the level of detail being captured in this show was it wouldn't withstand it. So we cut the beards all down to just these thin lines, and we had to lay the entire top and fill in the bottom, which takes time and precision. But that kind of thing, like Connie and her team did some beard work, and we just do full characters. And by the same token, Connie and her team did, Connie did Hera's prosthetics. Joanna did Archie's prosthetics. So it was a real collaborative effort, and I thought it was definitely the best for the show. Yeah.
Yeah, so in the second episode, there's a montage, and when we come out of it, we're 17 years later. Can you talk about, aging the characters up and what was different?
Cool. Well, you just made a liar out of me with the bear thing. I just caught myself because, sorry, that wasn't until after the 17-year run. No, I'm lying.
I think it's actually at the start of the second episode, isn't it?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, just when you first meet Jerry Morale. As far as the 17-year push, it was interesting because we ended up doing pulling the characters back. Had to start with that in mind because the majority of the show is going to happen 17 years along. We had to shoot this sort of this earlier sequence in episode 1. So it was a challenge. We ended up youthening the characters and planning with to use whatever age in their face that we could push along sort of gently without getting into big prosthetics. The one caveat to that was Alfrey. In the end, we ended up Tatiana does a beautiful job with makeup, but in the end we ended up doing scrapping a prosthetic. I did a prosthetic for her that basically revised her forehead, just gave her a little bit of lift in her forehead, a little bit of flattening in here and here. But it was a lot to undergo for a given day's shooting. We found it was best to set that aside, and Tatiana really didn't need it in the end. So for the majority, it was just there were subtle little additions that were done prosthetically for, their character work, or to establish a bit of history over that 17-year period. And they're pushed along mostly with paint and graying of hair.
And what would you say is kind of like the big makeup effect of the show, the thing that you're most proud of?
The I think the biggest makeup effect of the show is the fact that there's not a big makeup effect in this show. It's the sheer volume and the believable nature, the subtlety. Yeah, these are things that I've kind of hinged my career on. That I really that's where I get a lot of joy. I mean, makeup effects is really fun because I can go extreme and do puppets and bigger monster gags and stuff, but there's a huge satisfaction in just creating a character, really pulling the wool over the audience's eyes, so that I love the fact that you look at the characters and the subtlety in the design, and it never strikes you as makeup. Right? If you don't think you're looking at a prosthetic or some kind of addition, then I've done my job well, and it really comes across in this. It's not a distraction. It's all about supporting performance at the end of the day, about telling a story. And I remember coming on to this project, and earlier producers sent me some scripts, and I gave them a read. Just outlines at first. And I gave them a read, and it's like, man, this is either going to be something really wonderful or it's going to be totally unwatchable. I got to take a look more at it because it's so high concept, right? Like, I mean, you can picture the same thing done with a lesser level of production or detail or performance or direction, and it'd be a sci-fi B-movie Sunday afternoon, that you'd binge for an episode and a half and go next. But it's really engaging because it is high concept enough that if the details fell apart even a little bit in the look of it, I think it just becomes kind of sci-fi drivel. But it's engaging and powerful. And when I went and met with Francis Lawrence and Trish Somerville, the costume designer, we talked about it in detail, and they really, had intentions on doing it right, and had the history to say that they could do it right. So I got more excited about it, and dove in deep.
Yeah, Toby. Well, thanks very much. Thanks very much for taking the time to chat.
Thanks,
If you
Riley.
enjoyed this interview, we have 4 other interviews with people who made the show C on the Gold Derby YouTube channel, and you can go to goldderby.com to make your own Emmy predictions.
Nice. Predict for us. Right on.